One of the things that I'm curious about is what trends are you really anticipating to play out over the next year? And you've already mentioned a little bit of your strategy, but is that going to impact your strategy in other ways as well as switching between quality grades?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think from the biggest macro, biggest level here, we see an interesting macro environment in 2022 for all the reasons you can imagine. The most relevant one for us that we track really closely is the housing market. We see home prices growing very quickly this year, probably not as fast as last year, given mortgage rates and just general affordability issues. So to us, that means more renter households or renter households that would have become homeowners will remain in rentership for at least 2022 and probably beyond. So, but what I think is interesting is that we take a very nuanced approach to that in the housing market. We are not fully convinced that story makes sense in every locality. So what we're doing is looking at the data, kind of running our little in-house algorithm to find those specific pockets where we're seeing that the zip code rent growth, and we're seeing high income growth within those zip codes, as well as high home price appreciation. We think those are kind of the best places to invest. So that's part of our strategy, is really paying close attention to the housing markets. We're also, very attuned to what's going on with mobility and migration, because part of our strategy is the Sun Belt region, and we all know that is growing, has been growing for many years, and how much of that is from the pandemic, how much of that pre-exists the pandemic. And from looking at the data historically, America has not been a very mobile nation for several decades. So, we're very cautious of this narrative that, everyone is leaving coastal metros and it's going to, set up shop in the Sun Belt. Again, going back to that nuanced analysis, we do see there are some places where they are benefiting from pandemic-driven population growth, from work from home, hybrid work. And what's great is that, really we wouldn't know much about what's going on with mobility. We'd have to wait for the census to give us their readings. A year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years old at that point. So what we need is the real-time data. And actually, it's great because with Markerr, we're able to see population trends as they're occurring, and that to us is going to give us the insight into which areas of this country are actually going to benefit from net migration. Yeah, I mean, and that's also what's so great about Markerr from our perspective, is that obviously you can go down to census tract level, but from the zip code, that's where we really want to. That's the space that we're most comfortable in. It's the geographic region that we like the best. For so long, we have been as an industry, I think, and within the firms I've worked for, kind of wedded to this concept of the submarket and the 3-mile radius, which forms the basis of so many kind of just basic acquisition screens. We've seen for ourselves that the submarket boundaries just don't really work for us. It's just they're too big, and then also the 3-mile radius is too large. It's encompassing of too many different areas. We've screened deals that we saw deals that would have failed our screen, and we went to tour it and loved it. And it's the specific example is one of our flagship properties. And then on the other side, there have been deals that have screened very well against 3-mile radius and submarket rent growth, for example, but just wouldn't pass muster. So we think that using that zip code data allows us to really hone in on a smaller geographic region, and it also fits in so nicely with everything, because you get the income, the rent data, the demographic data. It's all at the zip code level. So for our own internal models, it all fits in so seamlessly. Yeah, it's a great question, because demographics they're almost, well, from the age profile of the country, it's very easy to predict. These were births that have occurred in this year, and now they're this age in this year. So we do see that 35 to 44 age cohort, and we in the multifamily sector have been so tied to the prime renter age group as being 20 to 34. So does that mean we just outright ignore anyone that becomes 35 and older? And we think no. We really like this older age cohort. We're seeing it within our own properties, And we think that the industry today has a wide variety of product offerings that can serve these different types of renters at different ages. We think of it kind of like this rentership pipeline. It could start as young as student housing, and then urban, high rise to suburban garden, and then ultimately to a sector that we're interested in now, which is single family rentals or the built to rent communities in particular. And and that is something that I'm very excited about, because we've conceived of it in a way that very similar to traditional multifamily, just kind of has the benefits that would appeal to this older age cohort, that whether they, for changing tastes and preferences, would prefer to rent, or for simple economic reasons, have to rent. We think that the single family rental market, the build to rent market in particular, is quite promising, especially if it's got those kind of high quality amenities, competent property management that you come to expect from professional modern apartments. So yes, the short answer is that the aging demographic profile doesn't really concern us necessarily. In fact, it really gets us thinking, about variation in the sector and how we can provide, housing for everybody. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because as long as I've been in the industry, data has always been talked about, rarely been implemented in an actionable manner. We've talked about that before. It's window dressing. It's there in addition to instinct or relationships or any other kind of non-scientific approaches to deals. But as we've seen this industry get a whole lot more competitive over the last several years, and just in the last few months, the focus on data has become front and center. The research department, I am happy to see, is no longer there just for the sake of being there. It's becoming, at least at CONTI Captial, it's becoming a critical component of the entire investment process. So I expect to continue to see that movement towards data and technology within the sector. But data is also can be challenging to work with. We're going to need more people in the in commercial real estate who not understand how to use data, but understand its misuses, because it's there, it's at our fingertips. It can easily be used in underwriting and it's just wrong, or it's built on faulty assumptions. So what I'm happy to say is, as a critical user of the data, I'm able to understand how it's collected, the frequency in which it's collected, and what it means for our forecasting. So at CONTI, we are hyper-focused on data quality, especially as we're building these internal investment and site selection models. And with Markerr, it's been great because there's so much transparency compared to some other firms that may be in the space. It's just this very honest about what the data can do, what it can't do, and how it's collected, and then being able to partner with you guys, as you say, to help us implement it, to help us fit it into our existing workflow. That has been essential.
Got it. Well, that's a very thoughtful answer, Louis. Really appreciate that, and glad to hear that you like our non-black box solutions that we provide. And thanks so much. That's it for all the questions that we have today, but really wanted to thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We know that you're very busy, and thank you again for doing this data dialogue with Markerr.